By now you probably know that 3 countries are hosting this FIFA World Cup. Canada for the first time, the US for the second time, and Mexico for the 3rd time. You may not know that 3 times is a new record, or that the World Cup keeps returning to Mexico because Mexico tends to host the best World Cups. Mexico is where football's greatest legends were made, where the game of the century was played, the goal of the century was scored, and the hand of God appeared. Mexico is where a football tournament grew into a commercial behemoth. And it pretty much all happened here, in the Estadio Azteca. For 60 years, it's towered over Mexico City and has hosted more World Cup matches than any stadium on Earth.
It was dreamt up as this place that would put Mexico on the global spotlight, and it's hard to argue that it won't be doing exactly that.
So I partnered with a journalist in Mexico to learn more about what makes this country the World Cup's favorite host. But the deeper we dove, the more we learned about the cost of this World Cup. Now, I don't mean the cost paid by the government, sponsors, or, God forbid, FIFA. I mean the cost paid by the people who live closest to the World Cup, in the shadow of the Azteca.
Están considerando nuestro territorio precisamente como una mercancía.
Yo iba a preguntarles cada semana más o menos, oye, ¿qué tiempo te vas a tardar todavía? Pero los plazos nunca se cumplieron.
Es un cuchillo de 2 filos. Por un lado nos va bien, pero así como están, pues va a estar canijo.
So this is the story of the World Cup's favorite host. How Mexico built the perfect stage for sport's biggest spectacle. And how the people closest to it are paying the highest price. Mexico's very first World Cup was the result of a miracle. The 20th century got off to a poor start in Mexico. First came the chaos of the Mexican Revolution, then the Great Depression. Eventually, a political party called the PRI consolidated power, stabilized the country, then transformed the economy. The PRI poured money into building everything from roads to factories and raised tariffs to protect businesses from foreign competition. Mexico's economy started growing 6 to 7% year after year after year. And by the 1960s, this so-called Mexican miracle felt unstoppable. To show off its achievement, the PRI signed up to host the 1968 Olympics and the 1970 FIFA World Cup, and it vowed to spare no expense.
The sky was the limit in terms of budgets, workforce availability, resources, etc.
Luis Castaneda is the author of Spectacular Mexico.
It was a single-party state. There were no real elections. There was no real dissent. And I think it's largely as a function of this centralization that this party can afford to take on these very, very, very ambitious projects.
Projects like a cutting-edge sports arena, a sprawling aquatic center, and an outdoor velodrome for cycling. The event's branding was also designed to leave an impression. But nothing says ambition like a big-ass stadium. So renowned architect Pedro Ramirez Vasquez was hired to design one. And in 1961, builders broke ground in the Santa Úrsula neighborhood in southern Mexico City. More than 800 workers excavated some 180 million kilograms of volcanic rock, shipped in 1,000 tons of concrete, 8,000 tons of steel, and in about 5 years finished a 115,000-seat stadium, one of the world's largest. It was ambitious and, according to Vasquez and the government, even democratic. In rectangular stadiums, the views from some cheaper seats are blocked by corners and pillars, but Vasquez used an elliptical bowl shape to ensure everyone, from those at field level to the nosebleeds, had a clear view. When he asked the people to vote on a name, they chose the Estadio Azteca, after the ancient civilization whose capital once stood in the same place.
The argument that was made at the time wasn't an arena for the sports for the few, it was an arena for the sports for the masses of Mexico.
The Azteca was designed to symbolize Mexico's miraculous economy and democracy. But that was only half the story. For one, the Mexican miracle wasn't a miracle for every Mexican. Rapid modernization left many rural and working-class people in poverty, while concentrating wealth at the top. The PRI wasn't truly democratic either.
Rebelling Mexico City students threatened the Olympic Games and the government sent troops.
In 1968, the Mexican military killed dozens of students protesting the PRI's rampant corruption and authoritarianism. Just 12 days later, the government opened the Olympic Games.
The agitations were suppressed.
Even the Azteca wasn't as democratic as it looked.
En 1962 llegaron con bulldozer, arrasaron con todo, quitaron a la población que ya estaba sentada ahí, pues haciendo lo suyo, ¿no? Delimitando territorio para vivir, etc.
Guadalupe has lived in Santa Úrsula for 35 years.
Los quitaron, los arrasaron y se instaló el Estadio Azteca.
She's talking to journalist Cynthia Barrera Diaz, who lives and works in Mexico City.
According to reports of the time, that's an accurate way to describe it. They did use force. 50, 60 years ago, quite honestly, I don't think that the authorities took into the consideration the local communities.
The incident marked the start of a resistance in Santa Úrsula that would last for decades.
Todo esto que se ve, la pintura de las fachadas, los glifos, que son muy autóctonos, es como el reflejo que se pretende dar del pueblo originario de Santa Úrsula, Coapa. Nosotros no sobramos, no sobra el pueblo, el que sobra es el estadio, porque fue fruto de una usurpación de territorio de personas que ya vivían y residían ahí.
Despite the contradiction at the heart of the Azteca, it quickly proved to be a spectacular venue for football. More than 170,000 people piled in to watch the stadium's inaugural match. And tens of thousands more came for the Olympics. But it was when the 1970 World Cup arrived that the Azteca revealed an almost supernatural knack for thrilling football. So I have to scour the internet to report for these stories, and that exposes me to a lot of those annoying texts and spam messages. Thankfully, I keep my personal data safe and secure thanks to my subscription to Incogni, and Incogni is the sponsor of today's episode. So there are hundreds of data brokers that take your personal information that you give out on the internet, your logins, emails, even your social security numbers, and they sell them to marketing companies. That's exactly how that information can fall into the hands of criminals. Now, we have the right to take our information back, but it would just take years to do it on our own. That's exactly what Incogni does for you, and it just takes 3 easy steps. Step 1 is you create an Incogni account and tell Incogni whose personal information you want to remove. Step 2 is you let Incogni work on your behalf. They'll go out, contact those data brokers, and request the removal of that information. Step 3 is you sit back and let Incogni do its thing. Incogni keeps you updated every step of the way. And the best part is, with Incogni's custom removal tool, you can send it a link to any website where your personal data is exposed, not just data brokers, and Incogni will request its removal. So you can basically disappear from the internet. Right now at incogni.com/searchparty, you can get 60% off an annual Incogni plan. Now, I've been using Incogni now for 3 years. I can personally recommend it. If you're interested in supporting my work and taking back your personal data, go to incogni.com/searchparty. Thanks again to Incogni for supporting my work. Now I'll get you back to it. The Azteca hosted 10 games during the 1970 World Cup. Mexico's team went undefeated there before being eliminated at a different stadium. In the quarterfinals, Uruguay beat the Soviet Union in extra time at the Azteca. Then came the game of the century. Italy led for 82 minutes until West Germany scored in the final moments. Then in extra time, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals. Italy moved on to face Brazil in the final, held, obviously, at the Azteca. Led by the legendary Pelé, Brazil won its record 3rd World Cup. Mexico's ambitious new stadium matched the tournament's ambition. It was the first broadcast live around the world and in color for some places. FIFA introduced a new ball that was easier to see on TV, and advertisers started tapping into the World Cup's true potential. Surrounding it all were Mexican fans, whose hospitality soon became world famous.
The 1970 World Cup is this just hugely iconic event, which the Aztec Stadium was also the literal stage for that.
And just 16 years later, it happened again.
El Mundial de Fútbol de 1986 no se hará en Colombia.
After Colombia fell behind on preparations, 3 countries bid to host the '86 World Cup, and FIFA unanimously picked Mexico. But this time, the country wasn't riding on an economic miracle. In 1982, the government's massive debt crashed the economy. Then came sky-high inflation, and less than a year before the World Cup, an 8.1 magnitude earthquake.
Mexico City in chaos, cement floors collapsing down flat, killing or trapping people inside.
Around 10,000 people died, and the government, still led by the PRI, was criticized for a slow response.
There's not enough heavy machinery to pull apart the massive concrete rubble.
Mexico City wouldn't recover for years, but the Azteca survived. And when the country kicked off the '86 World Cup, it delivered the magic again. The Azteca hosted 9 matches. Again, Mexico's team went undefeated there, and another quarterfinals became legendary. First, Argentinian Diego Maradona scored with what looked like his head, but was actually his hand. Then he carved through the entire English side to score the goal of the century. For the second time, football took a giant leap forward in Mexico. 24 teams played, up from 16. New advertising tactics like the viral Carta Blanca beer model debuted, and the famously hospitable Mexican fans helped popularize the wave. The tournament ended with an Argentina victory. The Azteca's second final and 19th World Cup match made it undoubtedly the tournament's most legendary stadium, and Mexico its greatest host.
Mexico has this illustrious position in the history of the World Cup that has something to do with this being born out of this huge ambition. You know, a country that is really, really determined to punch way above its weight class.
Meanwhile, Santa Úrsula grew around the Azteca, and its residents came to rely on it by selling food and goods to fans on game days. A World Cup was their biggest opportunity.
Back then, people did enjoy what it brought. People believed that they could at least partake in some capacity in a World Cup.
They had plenty of other opportunities as the Azteca continued to draw huge crowds. 132,000 came to see the Mexican boxer Julio Cesar Chavez. Over 600,000 saw a stretch of 5 Michael Jackson shows. And more came to see American football than you might think.
We're at the Estadio Azteca with 105,000 fans.
Meanwhile, the Azteca served as home field for 2 professional clubs and Mexico's national team, which by 2017 had lost only 2 World Cup qualifiers there out of 49. So in 2018, when Mexico, the US, and Canada won a joint bid to host the 2026 World Cup, the Azteca was called to duty once again. It would be the biggest event in football history. But to handle the biggest event in football history, Mexico had to overhaul the Azteca, inside and out. To prepare for the World Cup, developers drew up big plans for Santa Úrsula. They wanted to build a hotel, shopping mall, and 4-story parking garage next to the stadium. There was just one problem.
All the people from the Santa Úrsula area got together and they pushed back and they said, it's not going to happen.
For years, residents have suffered from water shortages, which many blame on an explosion of new condos and the stadium.
The stadium brings together a large group of people to push back whenever they feel that things as basic as water can be threatened by constructions, by the gentrification of many areas.
But residents couldn't resist everything. In 2024, Televisa began renovations inside the Azteca. It replaced the turf, bathrooms, locker rooms, and turned thousands of seats into VIP areas, decreasing the stadium's capacity to 87,000. The work ran over deadline and over budget. Televisa sold the stadium's naming rights to help pay for it all. Then, as the World Cup approached, construction blanketed the area as the government replaced water lines, lighting, and paved new roads. And just weeks before the tournament was set to begin, the work was intensifying.
Pues ha sido desde baja en ventas, un 30%, 40% aproximadamente, en algunos meses más.
Daniela says the construction is making it hard for her customers to reach her pharmacy.
Tengo pacientes que no todos son de esta zona, que vienen de diferentes zonas de la Ciudad de México y batallaban en llegar, sobre todo los días sábados, que cerraban sin previo aviso muchas calles.
A block away, Antonio's tire shop is facing the same problem.
Sí, ya no pasaba gente, no pasaban coches, pues no había trabajo.
Y las autoridades, antes de que iniciaran todos estos trabajos, tuvieron, pues no sé, algún tipo de comunicación.
Pues aunque nos avisaran, de todos modos no nos iban a ayudar.
Nunca hubo un aviso por parte de la alcaldía. Nos decían, por ejemplo, de Circuito Azteca, que iba en un mes terminaba la obra, y no es cierto, se tardaron 3 meses en poder terminar al 100% la obra.
Cynthia got the sense that many people weren't exactly thrilled by the chance to host Mexico's third World Cup.
Mostly because a lot of them have been feeling the pinch of all this work.
But the disruptions won't end when the World Cup starts, because this whole area will be restricted for security. Last February, the Mexican military killed the leader of a drug cartel in Jalisco. The ensuing gunfight left around 70 people dead and raised concerns that cartels could target the World Cup. So the government doubled down on security. And on game days, they're keeping residents and fans separate.
During normal operations of the stadium, people are prepared with food, with drinks, other small bars, so they are able to benefit from some of that foot traffic in the area. But right now, no, they're completely being put apart.
So people in Santa Úrsula are losing business, their freedom to move around, and even the chance to make money from this World Cup. Yet no one that we spoke to would even be able to get inside the Azteca to enjoy it.
Yo creo que sí lo veo muy complicado por la parte de los costos en los boletos. Sí, son precios muy elevados.
La verdad no, ni siquiera no hice el intento porque pues es un poquito caro, ¿no?
Aquí entre los vecinos no se han organizado, no sé, para sacar televisiones, ver juntos o algo.
De hecho, no van a dejar poner a nadie. Nada de venta, solamente adentro de sus casas.
All of this have left many in Santa Úrsula with the feeling that they're being pushed aside for a World Cup again.
It's quite a paradox because on one hand you have the government trying to showcase Mexico City, and on the other hand people who live there and experience the day-to-day life, they're not part of it.
On June 11th, the World Cup kicked off at the Azteca, the first of 5 games there. Mexico beat South Africa, then a week later Czechia, then Ecuador. The stadium will host its 24th World Cup match when Mexico plays England on Sunday. The mood in Mexico is electric. For the first time, 48 teams are playing 104 games. And FIFA estimates it'll make a record $11 billion.
It's very unique that Mexico, having never been a true world superpower, has nevertheless found more than one way to really kind of occupy the world stage with almost unrivaled ambition. And sports is one of them.
But for the people in Santa Úrsula who have built their lives around this stadium, it's a missed opportunity. When their stadium's biggest moment arrived, they were pushed aside.
Nuestros valores culturales están arraigados en las costumbres, en la cotidianidad, en usos y costumbres del pueblo, y en ese sentido no se respetaron esos principios y ni siquiera se los imaginan.
Hey everyone, thanks again for watching. That's our 3rd World Cup episode. If you haven't subscribed yet to Search Party, now's your chance to. If you've enjoyed my World Cup reporting, head to newpress.com/start to join the community. That's what keeps this journalism possible. We've got one more episode to go. It's coming in about 2 weeks, and it's going to answer a big football question a lot of you have asked me in the comments. After that, we'll return to business as usual. We've got geopolitics, sports, and some really cool investigations on the way. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.